Okay, so we'll continue our discussion with fabric path. We'll see some multi-topology today and VPC plus. Okay, so we'll first go and configure switch IDs. That's first what we'll do actually. So we'll configure switch IDs as 71 here. $72 for him, 501 for him, 502 for him. So in all the nexus here, they are not my default VDC. So if I check show feature set, I would see that the fabric path feature set has been disabled. It has already been installed in the default VDC. We are not allowed to touch default VDC here for my Gold Lab practicals. So that feature install feature set fabric path has been already given on the default VDC. What we need to give next is your feature set fabric path. Okay, and for some sets of VLANs we're gonna make, so say VLAN 10, 20 and 30 are the three VLANs that we'll choose to do mode as fabric path. So switch port mode is say fabric path. And then next is we go to the interface, run fabric path. So Ethernet 1/21 and 22 and my Ethernet 1/25 and 26. Switch port mode is fabric path. Similarly, I'll do that on my Nexus 7K2. So we'll first give the command feature set as fabric path, VLAN 10, 20, 30. Mode is fabric path. Interface Ethernet 1/21 and 22, 1/25 and 26. Switch port mode is fabric path. Similarly for my 5Ks. Now in 5K I need to start with the command of install feature set fabric path and then feature set fabric path. So there is no difference in the commands of 5K and 7K. And on my interfaces that I want, so first change the VLAN modes to fabric path. So VLAN 10, 20, 30 mode as fabric path. Interface Ethernet 1/1 and 2 and Ethernet 1/5 and 6. Switch port mode is fabric. Here also install feature set fabric path. Then feature set fabric path, then VLAN mode as fabric path and my interfaces. Switch port mode is fabric path. Actually before you do this you should have actually hard coded the switch ID, but it does not matter here because we are giving new switch IDs, right, which would be different. So fabric path switch ID for 7K1 is 71, for 7K2 it is 72, for 5K my fabric path switch ID is 501 and 5K2 my fabric path switch ID is 50. Okay, if everything is working fine, then show fabric path switch ID should show you all the switch IDs that we have, and as we see we have all of them. That clears the doubt that there might be some problem here. Okay, in show fabric path switch ID everything should be there.
The number of links is by default or the standard
Number of
links?
Number of
Links.
Links.
Lead.
Needs.
Is what I'm saying, let's say, is it possible for 5K to give you public first ID number 1 or number 2?
Yes, any number you like. Now,
What does start with?
which one?
You're on that.
Star means you are this switch right now. Current switch. Now we'll make some SVIs here and we'll try to ping. So I'll make SVI for all of them for VLAN 10 and I'll give an IP address to 7K1 as 71. So I'll make SVI on all of them, try to ping them just to verify. So 5K1, let that be 51. 5K2, let that be 52. Okay, so let us do that. On 7K1, I'll go and make my speech interface VLAN first. IP address 10.1.1.71. .5K1 also. .5K2 as well. So if I have done this, actually they should have sent a gratuitous app already. As soon as I make the interface up, they will send a gratuitous app already. And in this particular case, what I have in my 7 case is I have my VDC here. The VDC contains both F and M module. So this cannot do conversational MAC address learning. So if you check show module here, you have both F and M module. Right, so 1 and 2 are my F132XP, 3 is my M148GT, and if I check my show interface brief, you will see that I have been allocated with the interfaces of 1/ and 3/. So I do have my M module. So this VDC cannot do any conversational MAC address learning. Okay. But what I can check is I can check the ping if it's happening to my 10.1.1.72. Right? It's pinging 10.1.1.51 or 52 or 51. Right, everyone is pinging fine. So if I check show MAC address table dynamic for VLAN 10, right, I see some MACs that are reachable via switch IDs, right? 501, 72, 502, all these MACs are reachable via a switch ID, as you see, right? Now what I'll do is in your fabric path like routing, you can limit the number of paths through which you can load balance the traffic. With routing, what was the command to limit the number of paths? You want to load balance the traffic too. Maximum paths command, right? So in fabric path also same command, maximum path command. So say for example I had 7k1 to reach, say for example 7k2. It has two paths, right? So I want to use not more than two, say for example I want to hard code the number of paths available as only two, because I have how many paths actually? 1 2 3 4 paths available, out of which both of them are equal cost, right? If I check on 7k1 to reach 7k2, show fabric path route. To reach 72 I have how many paths here? 4 paths, because all of them are equal cost of how much? 80. That's what it shows, right? So I will make them only 2 paths. In order to do only 2 paths, how would I do that is, you need to go to fabric path domain default first. Okay, so fabric path domain default. It's like going to a router OSPF process. You are going to the fabric path process. Under this you have some commands that you can do in order to do things like authentication. Okay, authentication, yes. Here you see a command of maximum paths as well, right? By default, what is the maximum amount of paths? 16. By default it's 16. I can change that to amount of, I want to change that to amount of 2. Okay, so if I give this command, maximum paths is 2, what should happen now?
I should see 2 paths.
Previously I was saying 4 paths, right? I should see only now, show fabric path route, I should see only 2 paths now. 21 and 22 are my 2 paths, as you see, right? So 21 and 22 is going via 5k1 to the 7k2 right now, right? So let me check here, show fabric path switch IDs. So it's going by a 501 here. Okay. Now there is some tree also made here, right? Because I have to not only forward unicast type of traffic, I need to forward multi-destination traffic. So for that I need some trees. I told that there is how many multi-topologies right now by default?
2.
Empty 0. There's only one multi-topology, right? In that multi-topology, how many trees do I have? 2 trees. Tree number 1 and tree number 2. Tree number 1 is used by any broadcast, unknown unicast or multicast traffic. Tree number 2 can be used by only multicast traffic. Okay, so here also I must have some election of trees. First of all, I must have a route for tree number 1. I must have elected a route for tree number 2. By default, the trees are elected based upon something known as your broadcast priority that we talked about, which by default is a value of 64. Since that would be the same, the election goes to things like system ID or switch ID. Okay, here higher the better in this particular case, and automatically tree number 2 root will be the second highest value. Whoever has the second highest value will be automatically the root for tree number 2. In order to verify that out, you can give the command show fabric path topology summary. Now if you give just the command show fabric path topology detail, okay, here what do you see is how many topology do you have right now? Topology number 0 is the only topology actually I have, right? Multi topology number 0. Because if you actually give show fabric path route as well, I would see the route actually for multi topology 0 itself. Okay, And if you check for show fabric path ISIS topology summary command, here you will see the actual output which shows you what tree, what F tag did you get, right? So tree number 1 got F tag value of how much? 1. Tree number 2 got F tag value of 2. Who's the root for the tree number 1? Device having 547F E, that's the switch having this particular MAC address, which is which switch? 502. Who is 502? 5K2. 5K2 currently has become the root for which tree number?
Tree number 1.
Tree number 1, right? And who has become root for tree number 2? 71 has become the root for tree number 2 right now. Why? Because if I check show fabric path switch IDs, if you check on all of this, his system MAC is the highest, right? His system MAC is the highest.
Yes.
So who becomes the root for the tree? If the broadcast priority is default 64 same, the one with have the highest system MAC will become the root, right? And who will become the root for tree number 2? The device having the second highest, which is 71, right? As you see, this one has the second highest. That's why he became the root for tree number 2. I want to change the root, say. I want to change the root so that my root becomes N7K1 for tree number 1. I am not concerned right now with tree number 2 because we are not doing any multicasting here, right? So I am just concerned with tree number 1. For tree number 1, I want 7K1 to become the root. So in order to do that, what can we change here? The broadcast priority, right? So in order to do that as well, we need to go to fabric path domain default again. Okay, here the command starts with root priority. So root priority is question mark, default is 64, higher the better. So let me give say 255 is my root priority. So if I give this command, let us check show fabric path ISIS topology summary. So who has become root for tree number 1? 71. Root for tree number 2 is 502. I want say 72 to become the root for tree number 2. What can I do then? Give him second lowest value. So I go to 72, go where? Fabric path domain default, and here I give the command of root priority is 254, second lowest. He becomes the root for tree number 2 then. So check show fabric path ISIS topology summary. So my 71 is the root for tree number 1 right now, 72 is the root for tree number 2 right now. Okay, now I want to check the topology for the tree. If you want to check the topology for the tree, currently if I check show fabric path ISIS topology and let me just give topology, and if you check for VLAN, first of all the VLANs 1 to 4095 belongs to which topology ID? Topology ID number 0, which is multi topology number 0. All the VLANs by default belongs to multi topology number 0. And if you check for interface as well, all the interfaces where you have configured the fabric path also belongs to multi topology number 0. Okay, by default all of them are working in multi topology. Each multi topology will have 2 trees. Currently we are just working with one multi topology and that has 2 trees. So in order to figure out how my tree looks like, right, what I can give the command is show fabric path ISIS trees. Now this metric is mentioned for the multi-destination tree from the root of that tree to the switch ID. It's not the real metric from your switch to that switch. It's a metric from the root of the switch to that switch ID. Now who is the root of the switch right now? 7K1 is the root of the switch. So for my multi-topology number 0, okay, for tree number 1, right, this is N7K1, okay, I have 72. So let us make the topology here, which we get. So if you check here, to reach 72 from 71, how much is the metric? 80, right? To reach 72 from 71, it is telling the metric is 80, and it's telling take which interface? Ethernet 1/22 interface. Means I'm using only one of the interface here, right? I'm not using 1/21. So one of the interface 1/22, I go to 501, right? That's how the tree looks like. So one of the interface I'm taking, and that one of the interface goes here as well. Like this. We need to figure out. So I know that this is what? Ethernet 1/22, right? And this would be Ethernet 1/2 then. Should be Ethernet 1/2.
Yes.
Right? How can I verify that now? Is check for 5K1 itself. What did I check here? Show fabric path SISE tree. So here to reach 71, it is telling Ethernet 1/2. The metric is telling you 0 here. Why? Because that's not the metric from whom? It's the metric from the root. To reach the root itself, it's 0. Right? This metric is not from my side. The metric here shown is the metric from the root's perspective. So root to reach the root is 0. Right? But I am taking which interface, as you see? Ethernet 1/2 interface, right? That's what we are taking here in the tree, 1/2 to reach the root of the tree. So we reach the root for tree number 1. So similarly, if I check how do 5K1 reach 7K2. So for 5K1 to reach 72, it's taking which interface? Ethernet 1/6, and that goes to my Ethernet 1/26. Okay, so this is actually Ethernet 1/6 and 5. So Ethernet 1/6 goes to Ethernet 1/26. So let us update our diagram here. That this is Ethernet 1/6 that goes to my Ethernet 1/26. And let us check what's the path between the 72 and 502, because as you see in our diagram, they are not directly connected, right? So they have to go in this way if they want to talk. So 5K2, let us check from 72 what is the path to reach 5K2. Show fabric path ISIS trees. So for 72 to reach 502, which interface it's taking? 1/26 again. So 1/26 is this actually. That is for 72. 1/26, 1/26, 1/26. 502 Ethernet 1/21. Actually, let us check from 5K2 to reach the root. How does it reach the root? So fabric path route, ISIS trees. To reach my root, I am taking Ethernet 1/6. Like this, right? So the tree is like this, right? E is taking to reach the root. Which path? Ethernet 1/6. So there is no path here actually between 5K2 and 72 to reach the root. This path is not the best path, right? Which path is a better path? The direct path is a better path, which is going to which interface? Ethernet 1/26. This is my topology for the tree. As you see, that does not cause us loops right now.
Yes.
Right? This does not cause us loops. This is the root of my tree, right? And this is not causing us any loops right now. So can I change the way that he selects, or right now 7K1 can take any of these two paths to reach whom? 72, right? Say the question said 71 should take Ethernet 1/21 to reach the 72. It should take which path? Only Ethernet 1/21, because currently if you check on 71, show fabric path route. Remember, we have given maximum path command as 2. So show fabric path route right now shows you how many routes to reach 72. 2 routes. One is Ethernet 1/21, another is Ethernet 1/22. Why 2 routes? Because both of them has equal cost of 8T. I want to prefer which path? 1/21 path. I want to prefer, right? What can I do then? Change the metric of ISIS. How would I do that? Go to that interface to do it, like you did for OSPF, right? You go to the interface to change the cost of OSPF. Here also Ethernet 1/21, fabric path, ISIS metric is the command.
Oh.
By default the metric is how much? 40. Okay, if you check question mark, let us give what? 0 also is possible. What will happen because of this? Metric could change. Which path will it prefer?
21.
So fabric path route currently shows you 21, right? Now let us try to ping. Previously it was pinging, right? We verified 10.1.1.72. It's pinging now also, as you see. Let us try to ping 51. Pinging fine. 52. Pinging fine, right? Let us do clear IP ARP. For my 10, or let me do star. So what I'll do is, currently I have these two interfaces, 1/21 and 22 being used, right? And I see that where do I learn the ARP entries on is actually my interface VLAN 10. That's my layer 3 interface, right? So what I'll do, I'll just shut down that interface so that my ARP entries are cleared, right? Show IPR. Okay, I'll no shut the interface again. Let me try to ping. 10.1.1.51. Now previously it was pinging, right? I cleared the up, and this is pinging 52. Let us check. 72. 72. It's unable to ping again, right? Now why do you think is this not working now? Tree has changed to what? We changed the metric to Ethernet 1/21 here, right? So currently for 7K1, previously what was the tree looking like? It was Ethernet 1/22 that was preferred, right? Means all my broadcast traffic, which is ARP traffic, goes through Ethernet 1/22 when it's forwarded via whom? When it goes to whom? This 72. It is forwarded by Ethernet 1/22, right? To reach 72 to do ARP for him. But right now, which interface is the route taking right now? It is not 22 because 21 cost is lesser, right? But that thinking is from only his side, because when you change the cost, that cost is locally significant to you yourself, right? Because we add the cost of our interface. So he sees the cost. If you go to 7K1 and check show fabric path ISIS trees to reach 72, which path am I taking? 21, right? And that should be the same thinking from whose side as well? This 5K1 side also, which is 501. He also should have the same thinking, because he is thinking that Ethernet 1/2 is the right path, right? And if he gets the traffic on which interface? Ethernet 1/1 is connected to 1/21 is connected to 1/1, right? So his thinking has not changed yet, because I went and changed the cost of whom only? 7K1. I didn't go and change the cost of 501, right? So if you check for 501, for him, if you check show fabric path ISIS tree, for him to reach 71, it's still whom? Ethernet 1/2. But he's sending out on Ethernet 1/1. So what will he do? He'll just drop it off. He'll not forward the ARP. He'll not forward the broadcast, because he's supposed to forward only if it comes on Ethernet 1/2 right now, not 1/1. So that might be a troubleshooting in your exam again. Okay, this is the biggest troubleshooting in your exam, because you are told to change the metrics, and on the process of doing that, you are also changing the trees. That's what people don't keep in their mind. Because when we are changing the metric, we are not only changing for unicast traffic. The question says to do it for unicast traffic, but the question is expecting that you know that you are changing it also for the multi-destination traffic. So after some time, after your lab, till you did the lab, it was perfectly fine pinging, right? First 5 minutes, it was pinging. After the lab finish, you again verify, it's no more pinging, right? Because then till then your ARP cache should be timed out.
Yes.
I did it manually right now. Till your exam finishes, your ARP cache should be timed out, and you'll get 0 in fabric path because of this, right? So what should you do in order to make this happen is you should also go to 501 and make this path as the preferable path, which is 1/1. How would I make that path as preferable path? Go to that interface Ethernet 1/1, changes fabric path ISIS metric again, right? I'll also make that as 0. Now if I do that and check show fabric path ISIS trees, I should see the 1/1 is preferred, and let us try to again ping. to 10.1.1.72. Now it's pinging, see. Right, so you need to be careful with all these things. When you do, the question would say you only to change for whom. The unicast traffic going from 7K1 to 7K2 should take this path, right? But as you would change that, that will also change your trees. Make sure your trees are compatible, because we can have only one tree, right? For each multi-topology, for your what type of traffic? Broadcast traffic. Only one tree is possible for broadcast traffic. So everyone should have the same tree. If somebody disagrees to that tree, your broadcast traffic flow will be interrupted then. So your ARP will be interrupted, there will be no pings that would occur there. Do you get my point, guys? Right? This is one of the troubleshooting that you'll get. And make sure you do this. Okay? In order to make it correct, make sure you do all these things. Everyone getting this? Okay. So if I want to do some changes with my multi-topology, you can do that as well by going to the command of fabric path topology. I want to create another topology.
It's just a single tree is working right now.
Single tree for broadcast.
For broadcast.
Yes.
And if I want to create a multicast traffic, then I need to make one more topology for the.
It's already made. You don't have to do it.
No, for the sake of the prospectors of this all packets, then it will create one more.
It has already created one more tree. You don't have to do it, because when you give the command show fabric path SIS tree, how many trees actually you have? Tree number 1, tree number 2. Tree number 1 is used by broadcast, unknown, unicast, multicast. Tree number 2 is by multicast. It's already there. Who is the root for tree number 2? 7K2. Now, as I told, if you want to make more multiple topologies, you can do that by giving the command fabric path topology, and then you give another ID. So you cannot have 0. 0 is by default there. 1 to 63 more you can create. Okay. It's not recommended though. Recommendation is for 5K do not create more than 2, or for 7K do not create more than 5 multi-topology from Cisco side. Okay. So it's not actually good to create multiple multi-topologies also. So fabric path topology ID number 1. Okay. Currently, what are my VLANs a part of? Topology ID number 0. It's like MST, right? In MST also, all the VLANs are a part of MST configuration number 0, right? Instance number 0. So what do I do? Make new instance, pull the VLANs from instance 0 and put in that instance. Similarly, I'll do that here as well. So topology ID number 1. Question mark, you have an option of writing member command only here, as you see, right? So member, and what member? VLAN. Okay, so what are my VLANs? I want to put in this topology ID number 1, which we are going to create as a new, say 20 or 10 is my VLAN. I want to put. Okay, now you have put the VLAN right now. Right, so if you check show fabric path ISIS topology summary, what you'd see here is we have multi-topology number 0 as well as multi-topology number 1 now, right? Previously you were seeing only multi-topology number 0, and F tag currently has not been generated as of now, because why? He is only a part of that multi-topology number 1. There is nobody else, right? Is there anybody else who is participating in that multi-topology ID number 1? No, he is the only one, right? So currently I have multi-topology number 1. There is only VLANs, but there are no interfaces, right? Because if I check currently show fabric path ISIS topology for my VLAN, or just this command topology VLAN, I have now 10 VLAN which we have put in another multi-topology number 1. But what about my interface? All the interfaces are still a part of multi-topology number 0. Even the interface has to be put as a part of multi-topology number 1, right? Only then it works, right? So I need to put my interface, say Ethernet 1/21. How would I put this fabric path topology, okay, and the ID number 1.
You can't use the range and tell everybody to do that.
Which one?
You can use the range command and tell them.
Range command. I want to put only one of the interface. That's right. You can always use the range command. So if I check right now, show fabric path topology interface. Right. So interface 21, which I put in which multi topology? 1. Right, is also in multi topology 0 as well as multi topology number 1. So what happens here in this case? He can forward traffics which are sent from multi topology 0 as well, multi topology 1 as well. But if other interfaces can send traffics which belongs to only multi topology number 0, right? So if I have other parts of my network where I didn't have VLAN 10, those let that be in multi topology number 0. For the networks which were in VLAN 10, right, those let them interface be in multi topology number 1 and 0 both. So that can be done in order. This is done to do what? Pruning. Right, this is done to do any prunings, unnecessary prunings that we don't want to affect our topology. That's where it's done. So like for example, I did this multi topology. This was on VLAN 10, right, this interface. So when VLAN 10 would send any broadcast, which interface will it take via? 1/21 only. It will not take 1/22. So that might stop my broadcast, or will not take 1/25 or 26, because all of them belongs to which multi topology? 0 only. So if VLAN 10 sends a broadcast, if I didn't want the broadcast to travel all these links, right, then I can stop that by putting that interface on a different multi topology. That is done to do pruning of my broadcast and all those things, which we did with trunk allowed list. In fabric path we need to do it this way. Okay, and in fabric path authentication is also possible, and in fact there are two types of authentication possible. Okay, one is authentication of your hellos, another is authentication of your protocol data units, like OSPF exchanges LSAs, ISIS exchanges something known as PDUs, protocol data units. So I can do the neighborship authentication. When I exchange the hellos of ISIS, that's when I can do authentication. When after forming neighborship, what do I exchange? LSAs, right? In this we call as LSPs, link state advertisements. Link state, this is advertisement itself, but they are known as actually PDUs. Okay, so what we do is we can do authentication on those as well. Because after forming neighborship in OSPF, I cannot do authentication when I'm exchanging LSAs. In OSPF, that's not possible. With ISIS, that's possible. Not only I can do authentication when I'm forming neighborship, when I'm exchanging my updates, that's also when I can do authentication. So two ways of doing authentication in fabric path is there. Okay, so in order to do that, you can do this commands. So there are two ways of doing authentication, as I told, right? So one is going to the interface and giving the command fabric path ISIS authentication type clear text MD5, both are supported. Obviously we'll be using MD5 the best. So type MD5 and you need to use a keychain like you did for RIP authentication or you did for EIGRP authentication. Same way, you need to first create a keychain, go and give that a password, and then under the interface you call that. So this is what type of authentication. It's authentication for my neighborship. When I'm sending what ISIS hellos, should I form neighborship or not? That's when I do this authentication. Another authentication is going to the domain default, okay, and giving the authentication. Now what would this authentication be for? LSPs, link state packets, when I'm exchanging my packets after neighborships. Okay, the previous authentication was to form neighborship. Do I match? After forming neighborship, I exchange updates. For exchanging updates, I don't do authentication. But here, that's also possible. When I exchange updates, you can do authentication by going to fabric path domain default and then doing authentication type MD5, authentication keychain, Cisco, all those things can be done. So say for example, let us do authentication between 7K2 and 5K2. If I want to do authentication, I'll go to 7K2, right? I will go to the interface where I want to do authentication, because right now I have formed neighborships of SISE, right, on all the interface that I'm connected with 5K2. So two interface I'm connecting, that is 21 and 22. I want to do neighborship but only authenticate and then do neighborships, right? So I can go to those interface 1/21 and 22 and give what command? Fabric path question mark ISIS question mark authentication, right? Authentication type, authentication check. Authentication check is check authentication on the received PDUs. It's by default enabled. You don't have to give this command to enable it. But what I do is authentication type first. You give a question mark, right? What do you want? Clear text or MD5? I want MD5 as my authentication type. And what is the authentication I want to do? You need to call a keychain for that. So keychain and the name of the keychain. So say the name of the keychain was FP authentication. So we need to create a keychain. So keychain named FP authentication. Inside that I'll give a key number, say 1. Inside that I'll give the password, say Cisco is my password. So without authentication they cannot form neighborships. And let us verify that out. So fabric path ISIS adjacency. So it's telling lost, right? Neighborships, and it's lost on both the links. So that will come up only if I do the same authentication on the other side. That is understood, right? You do the same authentication on the other side. Now there is another way of doing the authentication that is not for forming neighborship but for exchanging updates. That is under my fabric path domain default. It's for the entire domain. Okay. So if you go under fabric path domain default, whatever configurations you are right now doing is actually for topology ID number 0. If you want to do something for topology different than topology ID number 0, first of all you need to write that, and then you do things like authentication, maximum paths, root priority are to change for after going to topology ID number 1. Okay, so let me not go to topology ID number 1. So I'll go to fabric path domain default, and here is where I give my authentication again. So authentication type, again authentication would demand you a keychain which you put in order. This is for exchanging your updates. So what updates do I exchange here in fabric path? Updates about how to reach the switch IDs. So those updates would not be taken if you do not authenticate. Okay, so that's how you do it. The most important thing is this one which we did right now, where you would be told to change the metric, and then you should make sure that you are also thinking about the multi-destination trees. So if that changes and there is nobody is agreeing to it, so because all of them has to agree to the same tree. So if that's not the case, you need to do troubleshooting then and there, because that time it will work, after some time it will not work. Okay, so make sure you check all these things which are very important. Okay, we'll take a break then.